Welcome back to the Practical English Podcast. I'm Angela.
And I'm Mike. We're so glad you're tuning in today.
Today, we're tackling a huge topic, something almost every English learner experiences. Mike, have you ever felt your brain get stuck when you're trying to speak another language?
Oh, absolutely. It's that moment where you know the words, you understand what's being said, but when it's your turn to speak, there's a delay. A little translation machine in your head is working overtime.
Exactly. That translation machine is what we're here to talk about. We're going to give you practical, simple steps to turn it off and start thinking in English naturally.
This is all about making English a part of you, not just something you study. By the end of this episode, you'll have a toolbox of techniques to help you speak more quickly, confidently, and naturally. We'll explore how to build your vocabulary with words that are relevant to your life, and how to practice speaking in a way that feels comfortable and effective.
So our first section is how to start thinking in English. The idea itself can sound really big and intimidating.
Right, it sounds like you have to be perfectly fluent to even start, but that's a myth. The truth is, you can start today, right now, with very simple words. The first step is to just start narrating your life internally in English.
Narrating your life? What do you mean by that?
I mean, the really simple things. As you're doing them, think the English words. For example, when you wake up, you can think, I'm waking up. I need to turn off my alarm. When you're making breakfast, think, I am making coffee. The water is hot. I am pouring milk.
That makes so much sense. You're not trying to have a complex philosophical debate in your head. You're just connecting simple actions with simple English sentences.
Exactly. It's about building a new habit. And another great way to do this is by labeling things.
Labeling. Okay.
As you go about your day, just look at objects and name them in English in your head. Chair, table, window, computer, phone. It seems almost too simple to work, but you're training your brain to see the world through an English lens without a translator.
Right. You're creating a direct link between the object and the English word, skipping the translation from your native language.
You got it. It's all about making those direct connections. Start small, stay consistent, and you'll be amazed at how quickly your brain starts to adapt.
These are great foundational habits. Another powerful tool, once you have a basic vocabulary, is to switch to a monolingual English dictionary.
That's a great point. It's about immersing yourself in the language in a way that feels natural, not like a chore. For example, instead of just reading a textbook, try reading a blog or a news article in English about a topic you genuinely enjoy.
That's a fantastic starting point. But thinking is internal. Eventually, we need to speak. So that brings us to our next section, real-life speaking practice.
Yes, moving from thinking to speaking is a crucial step, and you don't need a conversation partner to do it. You can start by talking to yourself.
It might feel a bit silly at first, but it's incredibly effective. Take that internal narration we just talked about and say it out loud. I am walking to the kitchen. I am opening the fridge.
You're getting your mouth and your vocal cords used to forming English sounds. Another great tool is the voice memo app on your phone.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Record yourself describing your room or talking about your day for 30 seconds. Then listen back. You'll start to notice areas where you can improve, and you'll also notice what you're doing well.
And here's a really important practice tip for our listeners. Try to speak before translating. When you practice, give yourself a challenge. Just say something.
Right. Don't worry if it's perfect. The goal is to get the words out. You can say, I go store now. It's not grammatically perfect, but it's communication. The correction can come later. The habit of speaking first is what you're building.
That's such a freeing mindset. And to communicate, we need words. This leads us to our next section, useful everyday vocabulary.
This is a big one. Many learners feel like they need to memorize thousands of words from a dictionary.
Right, but how many of those do you actually use in your native language every day? The key is to focus on vocabulary that is relevant to your life and learn it in chunks, not as single words.
Learning in chunks, you mean phrases or collocations.
Exactly. Don't just learn the word decision, learn the phrase make a decision. You don't do a mistake, you make a mistake. These chunks make your English sound much more natural.
Can you give us a few more examples of useful everyday chunks?
Of course, things like run errands, which means doing your necessary shopping and tasks, or grab a bite to eat instead of just eat. Another great one is catch up with a friend.
Those are perfect examples, and the best way to remember them is to use them. So for our listeners, here's a practice tip. Try to use simple English sentences daily with these new chunks. You could write down, tomorrow I need to run some errands, or tell a friend, let's catch up this weekend.
Putting that vocabulary into sentences brings us to our next topic, natural sentence patterns.
This was where the stop translating rule is so important. Often, learners try to build English sentences using the complex grammar rules from their own language. But conversational English often uses simpler patterns.
That's so true. In many languages, you can have very long, complicated sentences. In English, especially when speaking, we tend to use shorter sentences.
Right, focus on the core pattern, subject, verb, object. I like coffee. She reads books. We watched a movie. It's clear, it's direct, and it's correct.
Let's give an example. A learner translating from their language might say, because of the heavy rain yesterday, the soccer game was canceled by the officials.
Which is grammatically correct, but it sounds very formal.
Exactly. A native speaker would more likely say something like, they canceled the soccer game because it was raining so much. Or even simpler, the game was canceled, it was raining too hard. Two simple sentences.
So the takeaway for our listeners is this. Don't be afraid of simplicity. Using simple, clear sentences is a sign of good communication, not a sign of a limited vocabulary. Your fluency will actually improve when you embrace these natural patterns.
Speaking of fluency, that's more than just words and grammar. It's also about the sound and rhythm of the language. Let's move on to fluency and pronunciation tips.
This is a fun one. One of the biggest keys to sounding more natural is understanding connected speech. In English, we don't pronounce every single word separately, we link them together.
Right. A classic example is, what are you doing? No native speaker says it like that, with 4 distinct words. It sounds more like, what you doing?
Exactly. Or I am going to becomes I'm gonna. Listening for these connections in movies, music, and podcasts is a great way to start recognizing them.
Another key is sentence stress. In a sentence, some words are more important than others, and we say them a little louder and longer. For example, in the sentence, I want to go to the park, the word park gets the most stress.
That's a great point, and we have a practice tip for this. We want everyone listening to repeat a few phrases out loud with us. Ready?
Let's do it. Repeat after me. What are you up to?
Good. Now try this one. I'll see you later.
Great job. And remember, the goal here is not perfection. It's not about losing your accent. Your accent is part of who you are. The goal is clear communication.
Focus on communication, not perfection. I love that. It takes all the pressure off.
Okay, we've covered mindset, vocabulary, sentences, and pronunciation. Now for our final section. Let's give our listeners some concrete English listening and speaking exercises they can do.
Perfect. My absolute favorite exercise for this is called shadowing.
Can you explain how shadowing works?
Sure. You find a short audio clip of a native speaker. It could be from a podcast, an audiobook, or a news report. You play the audio and you try to repeat what they are saying at the same time they are saying it. You're like their shadow.
You don't wait for them to finish the sentence. You speak along with them. It's challenging, but it's incredible for improving your rhythm, intonation, and pronunciation.
And here's a tip. You can practice shadowing with this episode. Just rewind a section and try to speak along with me or Angela. It's a perfect way to practice.
Another great exercise is the 1-minute topic. Choose a simple topic like my favorite food, my weekend plans, or a movie I like. Set a timer for 1 minute and just talk about that topic without stopping.
Right. The goal isn't to be perfect, it's to keep talking. This trains your brain to find words and form sentences quickly without translating. You're building fluency and endurance.
And the key with all of these exercises is consistency. 5 or 10 minutes of focused practice every day is so much better than 2 hours once a week. We've talked about some great self-study techniques, but for those who are a bit more tech-savvy, there are some amazing digital tools that can help. This brings us to our next section, leveraging technology for practice.
That's a fantastic point, Angela. We live in a digital age, and the resources available at our fingertips are incredible. For instance, language exchange websites and apps can connect you with native English speakers from around the world who want to learn your language. It's a win-win. All right, that was a lot of information, but hopefully it feels manageable. We've talked about how to start thinking in English by narrating and labeling, how to practice speaking even when you're alone, and how to focus on useful vocabulary and natural sentences.
Exactly. You can schedule video calls and spend half the time speaking English and the other half in your native language. It's a wonderful way to not only practice your speaking skills, but also to learn about different cultures and make new friends. Plus, it's usually free, which is a huge bonus. And we covered tips for pronunciation and gave you exercises like shadowing and the 1-minute topic to put it all into practice.
And for those who might be a bit shy about speaking with a real person right away, there are some great AI-powered language tutors now. These programs can simulate conversations, and you can practice speaking about various topics without any fear of making mistakes. They often give instant feedback on your pronunciation and grammar. If there's one thing we want you to take away from this episode, it's this.
Fluency happens when English becomes a habit, not just a subject to study. Relax, practice, and enjoy learning English naturally.
That's the perfect summary. Thank you so much for joining us on the Practical English Podcast.
Keep practicing, and we'll talk to you in the next episode.